Hello there, sports fans. So today we're going to be having another look back at the 22-23 season, but this time it's looking at the football matches I went to. Now, as you can see just over here, for my footballology stats, I went to 21 games and 10 for my team, Doncaster Rovers. So I'm going to split this into two parts, and this is part one featuring Doncaster Rovers. Watching football has taken a bit of a back seat for me over the last couple of years for a variety of reasons. One of which being me getting into basketball and ice hockey a lot more, but another being watching the football of Danny Schofield and Gary McSheffrey was absolutely painful. But this season, Grant McCann was back and optimism was there, so I was ready to fully get behind the Rovers. Now, I'm a pessimist fan by nature, so I wasn't expecting miracles, but I thought maybe we could push for the playoffs with a good season. So first up for me was taking a pre-season game away to York City. Now, I take no value in any of the results or performances during pre-season. I literally use it to tick off new grounds, and I'd never been to York, so I made the trip up there and was pleasantly surprised with what I found. It's a nice little ground, a new ground. Often I'm really not a fan of new grounds. Case in point, our ground, the Eco Power Stadium, is hideous. There's no atmosphere, there's no character, there's no anything, but it serves its purpose for families, and it's a nice place to come and watch football. But for me, I prefer the old grounds. So I'm always sceptical with a new ground, but York have done a good job with this one in making it relatively unique, and a nice evening out it was. And then the first league game I took in was Notts County at home. And as I was saying earlier, I was relatively optimistic for the season, but we were absolutely rancid in this game, getting absolutely battered by Notts County. And any optimism I had of making the playoffs had sort of dwindled because we'd had a pretty bad start prior to that game as well. But after our terrible start in the league, we had a little distraction with a Premier League Carabao Cup tie against Everton. So I went along to this game and we actually played really, really well. Everton were atrocious. It was no surprise they probably spent most of their time down the bottom of the Premier League this season, because they were really, really bad for the sort of first 70 minutes. We were the better team, and then sort of the last 20 minutes or so, you could see legs went. And then Everton's sort of quality sort of shone through in the last 20 minutes. I think they got the last two goals in the last 20 minutes to go from 1-0 behind to 2-1 up, and that was us out of the Carabao Cup. But it was a great evening, like I say, going toe-to-toe with a Premier League team for most of the game, sort of restored my optimism for the rest of the season. Up next was a league game against high-flying Gillingham at home. Now, the previous three games I've been to so far this season were all solo, but I'd managed to get some friends to come along with me to this game against Gillingham. It's quite difficult to sell Doncaster Rovers as an afternoon out to friends who don't follow them, but I managed to drag four along to this one. I wasn't optimistic. Like I say, our league form had been patchy, even though the game against Everton had been a bit of an improvement. League form had been very, very patchy of late, and Gillingham, I think, were in the playoffs at the time, and we were either in the relegation or just above it. But we managed to pull out a 2-1 win, and a great afternoon was had by all. And we even managed to sample the new food at the Eco Power Stadium. For years, our food has been absolutely dire, but this season, there's new catering staff, and it's actually pretty good. And then it was my first proper away day of the season. First away league game at Accrington Stanley. And as I said earlier, this is my type of ground. A proper old ground. Just so much character. Just a brilliant, brilliant stadium. What wasn't brilliant, however, was the weather. It absolutely pissed it down for the entire game. Literally, I was in the uncovered away end behind the goal, and as soon as kickoff went, the heavens opened, the wind picked up, and we got absolutely battered by the weather. And unsurprisingly, the game was an absolutely dour 0-0. I mean, fair play to both teams for even getting through the game. The weather was that bad. We don't play the greatest of football at the best of times, but in that weather, it was absolutely impossible. But honestly, I had an absolute blast. Like I say, stadiums like that, I just absolutely love them. Now, at this stage, the league form was still a bit patchy. We were still very much down the bottom of the league, but we progressed well in the EFL Trophy. And this made me do something I swore I would never do, and that is pay money to go and watch EFL Trophy games while they have the stupid Premier League B teams in them. As soon as they introduced that rule, I swore down I would never, ever pay money to that competition until they got rid of them. However, I'm willing to sacrifice my morals in the hope of a Wembley visit. So as we'd reached the knockout rounds, I thought, you know what, let's just go. We might end up at Wembley. Who cares about morals, hey, if you get a day out? So I went along to the home game against Wigan in the first knockout round, which we won on penalties, thanks to this brilliant save from Louis Jones. And then up next, it was the quarter-final tie against Bradford City. So I went along to that as well. And to be fair, Bradford is one of my favourite grounds. Again, a bit like Accrington, proper old ground, sort of really big for the level. Unfortunately, due to, I think a lot of fans are like me and just boycott the EFL trophy because of the farce of B teams. So there were literally no fans at either of these games. I think we only opened a part of a stand for the home game against Wigan, and Bradford, it was sparse. I think they opened two, a little away end, and then two sides of their home stand. But it was barely anyone in there, which I agree with you, but like I say, there was clearly many people like me sacrificing morals. Not many. There was probably about 1,000, maybe 1,200. But unfortunately, our run came to an end against Bradford. It wasn't a particularly great game. I think they won it 1-0. And that was us done. My dreams of Wembley dashed for the time being. And then something crazy started to happen. In the league, we just started winning and winning and winning. It was bizarre. After, I think it's been about 3 seasons of being absolute rubbish, and most of this season spending it just outside the relegation places. No one from Doncaster saw this coming, and we just went on a run of win after win after win. And I managed to go to a few of these along the way, starting with Wimbledon, which admittedly was a terrible game. Akib Adelakun scored the goal after about 3 minutes to put us 1-0 up, and then literally the other 87, barely a thing happened. But hey, at this stage, we couldn't care less how we won, just get the wins on the board. And then the next game I managed to go to was Wrexham at home, and I fully expected the run of wins to stop here. Wrexham obviously flying high, backed by Hollywood, having a great season themselves in the automatic promotion places. We, I think, at this point had probably climbed into the top half, but we're still a very, very outside bet for the playoffs. But I went along sort of with hope more than expectation. But we managed to pull it off again. A much better performance, a much better game than the Wimbledon one, but another 1-0 win. And we were on, I think that took us to 5 wins in a row. And like I say, just outside the playoffs, but it was still a ridiculous sort of long shot for us to actually make it there. And by the time I next got to a match, we'd won another 4 games to take the unbeaten winning run to 9 wins in a row on a sort of club record tear of consecutive wins. So we headed down to Gillingham away, second to last game of the season, knowing a win would put us into the playoffs, which, considering, like I say, we'd spent the vast majority of the season in 22nd, to get to the playoffs would have been absolutely insane. And it started badly. We went 1-0 down to Colchester. They were fighting for their lives, trying to stay up. But it was weird. As a Doncaster fan, we went behind and no one in the away end cared. There was just, by this point, 9 straight wins. The expectation was, it's fine. We will just come back and do it. And that is exactly what they did. Turning it round, 4 goals to win 4-1, an absolutely brilliant performance. And we were in the playoffs. We just had 1 game left. And if we just didn't lose, we'd make it. And not only were we in the playoffs, we were in the top seeds of the playoffs. We were up to 5th. And yeah, so it was just going to Gillingham and getting a result, and we'd made the playoffs. Now, unfortunately, this is where my season ended. Colchester away was the last one. Unfortunately, I couldn't get a ticket to the Gillingham game because I was waiting to see if I was needed to cover the ice hockey finals that weekend. And by the time I got confirmation on that I wasn't needed, the Gillingham tickets had sold out. And then we got the draw there, though, so we made it into the playoffs, finishing 5th. One of the most ridiculous runs I've ever seen from any team, from 22nd to 5th in about 2.5 months. And then we had Crewe in the playoffs, and in typical Doncaster fashion, unfortunately I couldn't go to either game because they clashed with the basketball playoffs, as I mentioned at the top of the video. really got into my basketball this season. I've been to every playoff game with them, so I decided to carry on going with them. But Rovers managed to win the first playoff game 2-0 away at Crewe, and you think, that's it, job done. Not lost for about 12 games at this point. Just don't lose at home. You're at Wembley. But no, what did we do? Lose 2-0 and then lose on penalties to not go to Wembley. But honestly, what a season it was following Rovers. And next season now, I'm fully optimistic that we can have a real push and probably get automatics. Like I say, Grant McCann got the team playing. He's such a good manager. It's so good to have him back. And I'm really, really looking forward to next season. Join me next time where I'll go through part 2 of me following football with all the other games that I went to that didn't involve Doncaster Rovers. But until next time, peace.